The sky above the battlefield was filled with dark smoke, glowing fire, and the strange, cold light of alien weapons. Captain Rylan Ward stood on a ridge of broken stone, looking down at the land that had been destroyed by the war. He felt the weight of the moment on his shoulders, but he did not let it slow him. He was calm, focused, and ready for whatever came next. Humans had never fought on this distant world before, yet Rylan already understood that if he failed today, an entire alien empire would fall. The Valari Empire had called for help weeks ago. Their queen, Saris Valora, had sent signals across the stars, asking for any allies who could stand against the machines known as the Nullborn. Many species heard the signal. Many promised support, but when they saw the power of the enemy, almost all of them withdrew before sending real help. Only a small human unit stayed. Only humans believed they might still have a chance, and they followed one man more than anyone else. Rylan had a reputation for thinking differently, acting faster, and inspiring soldiers even when they had no hope left. His strategies were unusual, sometimes risky, but they worked. And now he found himself leading a group of humans through the ruins of a world that was not theirs. Above the ridge, strange crystal towers stretched toward the sky. Towers built by the Valari long ago. Now most of them were broken or burning. But even in ruins they looked beautiful. Rylan watched the silent movement of the Nullborn in the distance. They were not creatures of flesh or emotion. They were machines built thousands of years earlier by unknown hands. Their metal surfaces reflected light in sharp angles, and their eyes glowed like frozen stars. They did not speak. They did not feel. They only advanced, wiping out anything that lived. The Valari tried everything, but nothing worked. Their ships fell. Their armies scattered. Their energy weapons barely slowed the machines. But when Rylan saw the Nullborn for the first time, he did not see an unstoppable force. He saw patterns. He saw timing. He saw small mistakes in the movement of the machines, tiny delays, repeated rhythms, things others had never noticed. He studied their formations for hours. He watched them like a puzzle he needed to solve, and slowly, a plan formed in his mind. Below him, the humans prepared their equipment. Most of them were tired, wounded, or scared. They had traveled far from Earth with limited supplies, thinking they would only be support in a small war. Instead, they became the last hope of a powerful empire. Rylan looked at them and felt a sharp sense of responsibility. He knew these people trusted him. He knew they expected him to lead them through this impossible mission. And he was ready to do it. The wind carried a low humming sound, the sound of the Nullborn waking more units for battle. Rylan moved down the ridge to speak to his squad. "Listen carefully," he began, his voice steady and clear. "The Valari fought these machines with strength and power. That didn't work. So we're going to fight them with speed, confusion, and timing. They repeat their movements every 3 seconds. They adjust targeting every 5. Their left flanks are always weaker. And they cannot adapt quickly to environment changes." Some soldiers exchanged confused looks, but others understood exactly what he meant. A young soldier named Halen asked, "Sir, how do you know all this?" Rylan pointed toward the distant lines of machines. "Because they think like machines. But we think like humans. That's our advantage." The squad nodded slowly. They trusted Rylan, even when his plans sounded impossible. It was not the first time he had led them into danger. And somehow, he always found a way out. They moved into position. Rylan crouched behind a fallen column made of glowing blue stone. He tapped his helmet twice, signaling the start of the operation. Humans were quick, silent, and coordinated. They spread across the ruins, using broken towers as cover. The Nullborn started moving toward the city center where the last remaining Valari citizens hid in underground shelters. They had no idea help was coming. Rylan waited for the exact moment. His eyes stayed fixed on the machines. 3 seconds passed. Then 5. Then another 3. His mind mapped their every move. When he finally understood the rhythm perfectly, he raised his hand and signaled. The humans opened fire. Their weapons were not very advanced by alien standards, but humans were known for making simple tools work better than expected. They used smart timing, clever angles, and unpredictable movement. They moved faster than the machines could calculate. They hit weak points the Valari never realized the Nullborn had. The machines reacted, but not fast enough. Rylan ran forward, sliding behind a broken wall. He fired at the joints of a Nullborn walker, striking its stabilizer. The machine stumbled. For the first time, in centuries, soldiers cheered not loudly, but with renewed hope. "Keep moving," Rylan shouted. "Never stay in one spot." The squad moved like water, changing direction constantly. The machines aimed their cold blue weapons, but by the time they fired, humans had already shifted positions. A Nullborn drone flew overhead, searching for targets. Rylan grabbed a small explosive disc from his belt, threw it upward, and timed it perfectly. The disc hit the drone as it turned, stopping its scan. It dropped from the sky like a stone, crashing against the ground in sparks. The humans advanced deeper into the battlefield. They used smoke grenades to blind the machines, knowing the Nullborn sensors would take several seconds to adjust. They used loud distractors to pull machine attention away from real targets. They used the natural terrain to block the machine's lines of sight. For the first time, the Nullborn were confused. Rylan felt pressure in his chest, not fear, but determination. The Valari citizens were counting on him without ever meeting him. Their queen believed no one could help them, but humans did not accept defeat so easily. The machines started reorganizing, shifting into new formations. But Rylan already predicted this. He had studied them long enough to know what they would do. "Left side! Move left!" he yelled. His team followed, dodging the next wave of fire. They slipped through narrow passages between crystal ruins and circled behind the machines. A huge Nullborn titan stepped forward. Its metal body was tall as a tower, its arms heavy with cannons. Its single eye glowed like a burning star. It turned slowly, searching for the fast-moving humans. Rylan ordered targeting on its leg joints. The squad hit the titan repeatedly. It tried to stabilize itself but couldn't. Its programming didn't account for humans moving so unpredictably. With a thunderous crash, the titan fell to the ground, shaking the earth. Witnessing the fall of one of their strongest weapons made the Nullborn pause for half a second, just enough time for Rylan to lead his final strike. "Forward," he commanded. They rushed ahead, firing at the machines from multiple angles. Rylan moved at the front, fearless and focused. He knew humanity had only one real strength in war: refusing to stop. They pushed until the last machine flickered, sparked, and finally shut down. Silence filled the battlefield. The human soldiers stood among broken machines, breathing hard but smiling. For the first time, they felt victory in a place far from home. Rylan looked across the field and saw the entrance to the Valari shelters open slowly. Frightened citizens peeked out, their bright silver eyes wide with disbelief. A Valari guard whispered, "The mortal. He defeated them." High above, inside her distant palace, Queen Ceres Valora watched the entire battle through her empire's surveillance screens. Her advisors had given up hope. Her generals had fallen in despair, but she saw something none of them understood. One human, one mortal. He had done what no empire could do. She rose from her crystalline throne, her heart steady but her mind racing with shock and curiosity. She spoke only 3 words, but they echoed across the great hall like thunder. "Bring me the mortal." The message that Queen Ceres Valora sent across her palace traveled quickly through glowing corridors made of living crystal. Servants, guards, advisors, and high-ranking nobles heard the queen's order and looked at one another in shock. Never in the history of the Valari Empire had a queen demanded to meet a human, especially a human soldier who came from a distant, less advanced world. Many aliens believed humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too rough. But after watching the battle, even the proud nobles were forced to admit a new truth. The mortal had done something extraordinary. Back on the battlefield, Rylan Ward was helping his squad gather supplies and check injuries. The ground was still warm from the fallen machines, and the smell of burning metal lingered in the air. Soldiers talked in quiet voices, amazed that they had survived. Some laughed from relief, others wiped their faces with trembling hands. For them, it felt like waking from a nightmare. Rylan walked through his team, checking every soldier personally. That was something he always did, no matter how tired he was. He believed that a leader should never stand apart from those who followed him. When he finished inspecting the last soldier, he finally allowed himself a slow breath. His body ached from running, dodging, and fighting. But the mission wasn't over. He knew the Nullborn could return at any time. The machines never stopped for long. He was about to radio the human command ship in orbit when he heard a strange humming sound coming from above. He looked up and saw a Valari transport ship descending. Its smooth silver shape reflected the sunlight like flowing water. The ship landed gently on a clear patch of ground, and a ramp extended toward Rylan. A group of Valari royal guards stepped out. Their armor was white and gold, their movements precise and formal. They approached Rylan and stopped a few steps away. The leader bowed slightly, pressing a hand to his chest. His voice was calm but held a respectful tone that surprised every human present. "Captain Rylan Ward," the guard said, "by command of Queen Ceres Valora, you are requested to appear before her at the Imperial Palace." Rylan blinked in surprise. A couple of his soldiers exchanged confused looks. Halen muttered, "Did he just say the Queen wants to meet you?" Another soldier whispered, "Humans don't get invited to alien thrones." "Right?" Rylan stepped forward. "I'm honored. But why does the Queen want me?" The guard answered, "Because you saved her people. Because you did what no other could do. The Queen wishes to understand how a mortal from a distant world changed the course of our war." Rylan understood he had no choice. When an empire's ruler summoned you, you went, especially when the ruler was someone as powerful as Ceres Valora. But he also knew he couldn't just abandon his team. He looked at the guard. "My squad needs medical supplies and shelter. Can you provide it?" The guard nodded. "It will be done." That was enough for Rylan. He gave his team a firm nod. "I'll return soon. Hold your positions. Stay alert." Halen saluted. "Yes, sir. Don't let them scare you in that palace." Rylan smiled slightly, though he wasn't sure what waited for him. He walked up the ramp and entered the Valari transport ship. The doors closed behind him, and the ship lifted into the air with a smooth, effortless motion that human technology still couldn't match. Through the window, he watched the battlefield grow smaller until it became only a pattern of broken ground and scattered wreckage. Inside the palace, Queen Ceres stood near a tall window of glowing crystal. She watched the sky, waiting for the ship to arrive. Her silver eyes reflected soft light. She looked calm, but inside her mind, she carried many questions. For years, she had been trained to rule with wisdom and strategy. She studied history, diplomacy, and science. She knew every part of her empire. But nothing in her experience prepared her for the sight of a single human defeating an enemy her greatest generals failed to stop. Her advisors gathered behind her, whispering in worried tones, "Your Majesty, it is dangerous to rely on an outsider. He is a mortal from an undeveloped world. How can such a being help our empire? We should interrogate him, not honor him." Ceres raised her hand, and the room fell silent. Her voice was soft but firm. "You all saw the battle. You saw what he accomplished. We cannot ignore such potential. If he understands the Nullborn better than we do, then he is already valuable." An older advisor bowed. "Even so, Your Majesty, humans are unpredictable," Ceres replied. "That is precisely why I need to speak to him." When the transport ship finally reached the palace, Rylan stepped out onto a wide platform made of shimmering stone. The colors beneath his boots shifted like liquid light. The palace was enormous, built with sharp, beautiful shapes and glowing structures that floated by unknown technology. Rylan had seen many alien worlds, but nothing quite like this. 2 royal guards led him through long hallways filled with tall windows, floating lanterns, and elegant carvings that changed shape when touched by sunlight. The air carried a soft scent, like warm crystals. Every Valari they passed looked at Rylan with shock, some with curiosity, others with disbelief. He was the only human inside the palace. Finally, the guards opened the doors to the main throne chamber. It was a vast hall filled with tall pillars and flowing light energy. At the center stood Queen Ceres Valora. Her presence was calm, yet commanding. Her silver-blue hair fell over her shoulders like strands of light. Even Rylan, who rarely felt intimidated, paused for a brief moment. The guards bowed and stepped back. Rylan remained standing, unsure of the customs. The queen noticed and spoke gently. "You do not need to bow. Your actions on the battlefield already show your respect." Rylan gave a polite nod. "Thank you, Your Majesty." She approached him slowly. "You fought the Nullborn with a strategy we have never seen. How did you learn their behavior so quickly?" Rylan answered honestly. "I didn't learn it, I observed it. Machines follow patterns. If you watch long enough, you see their limits." Ceres studied him carefully. "Our generals have tried to understand them for centuries. None succeeded. Yet you did it in one day." Rylan shrugged slightly. "Humans are good at adapting. We don't always have the best weapons or strongest bodies. So we use whatever we can. Timing, instinct, mistakes, anything." Her eyes glimmered with interest. "Your kind is unusual." Rylan smiled lightly. "We get that a lot." For the first time, the queen allowed a small smile as well. It was brief, but genuine. She turned and motioned for him to follow her. "Walk with me." They moved through the palace corridors, passing floating displays that showed data about the Nullborn. Rylan noticed swarms of red dots representing machine armies advancing across nearby sectors. Ceres spoke in a quiet voice. "They will not stop. Today's victory bought us time, but they will return stronger. My empire cannot endure another defeat." Rylan listened carefully. "And you think I can help?" She stopped and faced him. "Not think. I know. I watched every moment of your battle. You did more than fight. You inspired your people. You created fear in the machines, and you gave my people hope again." Rylan felt the weight of those words. He was not used to being praised by rulers or governments, but he understood the situation. The Valari Empire was on the edge of collapse. If they fell, many species would fall next. "I'll help you," he said without hesitation. "But I won't fight alone. Humans need support, supplies, coordination, and we need to work together." Ceres nodded. "That is why I summoned you. I want to understand your mind, your strategies, your way of seeing war, and I want our empire to learn from humans." Rylan took a slow breath. "Then we start today." She looked at him with steady eyes. "Yes. Today, the Valari Empire and humanity step into a new future." The queen turned toward the glowing map, her voice firm with determination. "You defeated my enemies, Captain Rylan Ward. Now let us prepare to defeat them forever." The next morning in the Valari Palace began with a soft glow spreading across the crystalline walls. The light moved like a calm river, slowly brightening the halls until they looked alive. Captain Rylan Ward stood on a balcony outside his temporary quarters, watching the strange sunrise. He had seen many alien skies in his life, but this one felt different. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful for a world still threatened by the Nullborn. Rylan leaned on the balcony rail, thinking about everything that happened. He had never expected to meet an alien queen, much less work beside one. Yet Queen Ceres Valora treated him with surprising respect, something humans rarely received from powerful alien empires. But now, respect alone was not enough. They had to prepare for the enemy's return. As he stood lost in thought, Rylan heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned to see a Valari attendant holding a small crystal tablet. "Captain Rylan," the attendant said politely. "Her Majesty requests your presence in the strategy hall." Rylan nodded. "I'll be there soon." He followed the attendant through the palace. passing guards who stood tall and silent like statues. Every Valari in the hallways glanced at him with curiosity. Some whispered softly, surprised to see a human walking freely inside the heart of their empire. Rylan ignored the attention. He was used to being underestimated by alien species. But yesterday proved that humans could surprise anyone. The strategy hall was a large circular chamber filled with floating screens and holograms. Several Valari council members stood around a central platform where maps shifted, showing red machine clusters moving across star systems. When Rylan entered, all the nobles turned. Queen Ceres stood at the center. Her presence was calm, yet strong enough to make the entire room silent. "Captain Ward," she said, her voice clear. "We begin now." Rylan stepped forward. "What's the current situation?" Ceres motioned to the hovering map. The Nullborn regrouped faster than expected. "They have already launched probes toward 3 more Valari worlds." The nobles murmured anxiously. Rylan studied the movement patterns on the map. "They're trying to test your weak points," he said, seeing where to strike next. One noble frowned. "And what makes you so certain?" Rylan pointed to the red lines. "They always expand in arcs, not straight lines. They leave openings on purpose, so you think there's a safe route. Then they collapse the trap." The nobles looked at the map again, this time with widened eyes. They had never noticed that pattern. Ceres looked at Rylan thoughtfully. "You see battle like a living puzzle, don't you?" "Exactly," he replied. "The Nullborn follow rules. We don't." A council member stepped forward, still skeptical. "Humans rely on instinct too much. Instinct cannot win a war." Rylan didn't get angry. He just answered calmly. "Instinct is what saved your world yesterday. ADU. The Erwachen in Setter. ADU." Rylan didn't get angry. "ADU. ADU. 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 ADU." The chamber grew quiet again. Ceres stepped between them. "There is no need for debate. I brought Captain Ward here to guide us. He sees what our eyes cannot." She turned to Rylan. "I want you to join our high command meetings. I want you to study our fleet structure, our ground strategies, and our defenses. Then I want your recommendations." Rylan hesitated. "I'll help however I can. But I need full access to your battle records. Everything the Valari ever recorded about the Nullborn." The nobles stiffened. That information was sacred, restricted even to most military leaders. Ceres, however, answered without hesitation. "You will have it." A wave of shock moved through the room. Some nobles exchanged worried glances. Others looked offended. But none dared question the Queen's decision. Rylan bowed his head slightly. "Then we'll begin." Over the next several days, Rylan spent long hours studying ancient recordings in the palace archives. He watched old battles, scanned machine behavior, and wrote notes on everything the Valari overlooked. Sometimes the Queen joined him, sitting quietly while he worked. She rarely spoke, but she observed every detail, fascinated by how quickly he decoded information. One afternoon, Rylan paused a recording of a battle that took place centuries before. The machines had surrounded a Valari fleet, trapping them in a perfect circle. Ceres walked closer. "That was the day of falling stars," she said softly. "We lost thousands. My grandmother survived that battle. She ruled with fear after that day." Rylan studied the frozen image. "Your ships tried to break out from the center. That was a mistake." Ceres narrowed her eyes. "What should they have done?" Rylan replayed the battle for a moment, then paused again. "This machine on the outer ring, it was slower than the others, almost like it was malfunctioning." Ceres leaned in. "I never noticed that." "You weren't supposed to," Rylan answered. "The machines hide weaknesses inside their own patterns, but once you find one weak link, you can break the entire circle." Ceres watched him with growing respect. "Your mind works in ways ours does not." Rylan set down the crystal tablet. "Humans adapt fast. We don't always understand our own methods. We just do what feels right." Ceres walked to the window. looking at the vast sky. Do you ever fear the weight of responsibility? Rylan shrugged. All the time. But fear doesn't stop me. She smiled quietly. That is something the Valari never truly learned. Later, the Queen invited Rylan to observe a simulation between Valari generals. They were testing defensive strategies against the Nullborn. Rylan watched as holographic ships moved across the room. The generals argued amongst themselves, each convinced their plan was better. Finally, Rylan stepped forward. Every one of your simulations ends the same way, he said. The Nullborn adapt faster than your chains of command can respond. You're fighting from the top down. But humans fight from everywhere at once. The generals looked confused. Rylan continued, you need flexible units, small teams with permission to act freely. You need to break your rigid structure. A general replied, that would cause chaos. Rylan shook his head. No, it would make you unpredictable. And unpredictability is the Nullborn's weakness. Saris listened closely. Explain further. Rylan walked to the map and traced lines with his finger. You create 3 small strike groups. They move independently, not waiting for central orders. They attack at random angles. They retreat when needed. They keep the machines guessing. A murmuring wave moved through the room. Humans fight like that, Rylan added. Not because we want to, but because we have to. Saris nodded slowly. Then we will design new strike teams. The generals looked surprised, but none objected. Slowly, the Queen's trust in Rylan started influencing them. The palace began changing strategies shifted. Training routines updated, and Valari officers started studying human battle methods. Outside the palace, in the city below, the Valari people began speaking of Rylan as a symbol of hope. They sent gifts, messages, and small lights to the sky in gratitude. Rylan felt humbled. He never fought for praise. He fought because someone had to. One evening, after a long day of strategy planning, Saris found Rylan alone in the palace gardens. The air was cool, and the glowing plants gave off soft, silver light. She approached quietly. You work without rest, she said. Rylan gave a tired smile. Machines don't rest. So I can't either. Saris stood beside him. Captain Ward. You have changed my empire more in a few days than many leaders have in years. He looked at her seriously. I'm not here to lead your empire. I'm here to help you survive. And by helping us survive, she replied softly, you help us change. They stood in silence for a while. Rylan looked up at the stars, thinking about the battles that would come. Saris watched him, realizing something unexpected, something she had never felt toward any alien, much less a mortal human. Finally, she said the words that marked a turning point for the Valari Empire. Rylan, I believe that with your mind, and with my people, we can defeat the Nullborn forever. Rylan nodded. Then we fight together. Little did they know that the machines had already begun their largest attack yet, gathering in the darkness beyond the nearest star. The city of Varelion was still recovering from the battle when John stepped onto the high balcony of the royal spire. The wind was cool, carrying the soft hum of distant engines and the faint glow of floating lanterns lit by the citizens to honor the fallen. The scars of war lay across the streets, but the people walked with lifted heads. They whispered the same name with hope, respect, and a little awe. The mortal, who stood beside their queen, the human who fought for a world not his own. John felt strange hearing it. He had never imagined himself becoming a symbol, let alone in a galaxy filled with species far older than humanity. But as he looked down at the alien city, he knew something inside him had changed. He was no longer the same soldier who had crashed here by accident. He had seen too much, fought too much, and bonded too deeply with these people to return to the quiet life he once had. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. He knew who it was before she spoke. You are awake earlier than I expected, Queen Seralith said, her voice calm but touched with warmth. John turned. She wore her ceremonial armor today, not for war, but for peace. The dark plates gleamed with faint lines of silver, symbols of her rise and the victory they claimed together. Her crown rested lightly on her head, glowing like starlight. Even after all they had endured, she still carried the grace of a leader meant to rule. I couldn't sleep, John said honestly. Too much on my mind. Sarilith stepped beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. The same thoughts that keep all leaders awake. The future. Something like that, John said. The city is healing. But the galaxy feels like it's just getting started. Sarilith nodded slowly. The defeat of my enemies will be remembered. But power vacuums always invite danger. Many will rise from the shadows. Some will challenge my throne. Others will challenge this world. And some may challenge you, John of Earth. He gave a small laugh. I'm used to that, but you should not have to be. She replied softly. The silence that followed carried weight. The kind of silence that comes when both sides know something important must be said. But neither wants to be the first to break the fragile peace. Finally, Sarilith spoke again. You know why I called for you that day. When I rose after the final battle and declared for you to be brought to me, it was not simply because you saved my people. It was because I saw something that the galaxy has forgotten. John raised an eyebrow. And what's that? The strength of a mortal who refuses to bend, she said. A strength that does not come from power or bloodline. A strength born from will. I saw it when you stood alone against an army. I saw it when you gave hope to people who had none. And I see it now. John felt heat rise in his face, something he did not expect to feel in front of a queen. You give me too much credit. I give you exactly what you earned, she answered firmly. Before he could respond, a call echoed from below. 2 royal guards stood at the entrance of the balcony. They bowed deeply. Your Majesty, the council awaits you. The galaxy representatives have arrived. Sarilith nodded. Tell them I will join them shortly. The guards left, and John exhaled. This is the big meeting, right? The one that decides what happens next? Yes, she said. A summit of leaders from across the sector. They want to know how I intend to rule after the war. But I fear some do not come for unity. Her eyes sharpened. Some may come to undermine it. Then you shouldn't go alone, John said. A faint smile touched her lips. I was hoping you would say that. Together, they walked through the royal halls. The structure was a blend of crystal and metal, glowing from within like a living organism. Everywhere they passed, citizens bowed, placing a hand to their chest in respect. Some whispered, thanks. Some spoke John's name with admiration. Children looked up with awe, as if he were a hero from ancient stories. John never got used to it. But he tried to return each gesture with sincerity. He understood why it mattered to them. They needed symbols now. Symbols of unity. Symbols of victory. Symbols that their queen had chosen wisely. When they reached the grand chamber, guards swung open the tall doors. Inside, the council members, leaders of different star systems, sat in a circle around a glowing table of projected stars. Some rose respectfully when Sarilith entered. Others stayed seated, their eyes narrow, full of hidden agendas. John followed her, feeling their gazes lock onto him. Some were curious, some suspicious, some annoyed. The idea that a human, an outsider, stood beside the queen irritated those who believed power belonged only to the old bloodlines. Sarilith stepped forward and addressed them. Thank you for coming. Today, we decide how our region of the galaxy will move forward. An older alien with deep blue skin leaned forward. Your Majesty, with all respect, your victory was impressive, but it raises concerns. A mortal from an unknown world played a crucial part. How can we trust that your leadership is not compromised by outside influence? The words hung in the air, sharp and pointed. John felt the tension in the room shift. Several council members murmured agreement. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Sarilith did not react with anger. Instead, she answered with steady calm. My leadership is strengthened, not compromised. John of Earth helped save our world, when many of you refused to. The room stiffened. Another leader, tall with crystalline armor, spoke. That is not the issue. The issue is that humans are unpredictable. Their worlds are young, their motives unclear. John stepped forward. My motive was simple. Someone needed help. I helped. The crystalline leader narrowed his eyes. And what do you want in return? Nothing, John said. Some laughed quietly, clearly not believing him. Sarilith lifted a hand and the room fell silent. I stand with him. My people stand with him. That may be true, said the blue-skinned elder. But what of the other systems? If humans learn of your world, they may come. Colonizers, warriors. You risk bringing a new threat to us all. Sarilith's gaze sharpened. Humans are not conquerors. They are survivors. Builders. Fighters when they must be. And they do not break their word. The elder leaned back. Perhaps. But trust must be earned, even by your mortal champion. A faint tension rose around the chamber. John saw the challenge beneath the words. It was not about trust. It was about fear. Fear of change. Fear of a new power in the galaxy. Fear that one human could shift the balance. John took a slow breath. He did not want to cause more conflict. He did not want Sarilith to defend him endlessly. So he looked around the table and spoke in clear, simple words. I'm not here to rule your galaxy, he said. I'm not here to claim power. I don't want a throne. I don't want anything from your people. Except peace for the Queen. And the world that gave me a place when I had nowhere to go. If humanity ever reaches your stars, they'll find allies, not enemies. That's my promise. The room quieted. For a moment, no one spoke. The raw honesty in his voice cut through the political tension like a clean blade. The elder watched him thoughtfully, then nodded, slowly. Very well, the elder said. Perhaps we judged too quickly. The atmosphere softened. Conversations shifted from suspicion to strategy. Plans for rebuilding. Plans for alliances. Plans for shared defense so no world would stand alone again. Hours later, the council ended on peaceful terms. When John and Sarilith walked out onto the balcony again, the sky was growing dark, and the city lights glowed like stars. You spoke well today, Sarilith said gently. I just told the truth, John replied. That is what made it powerful. They stood together in calm silence. Below them, the people celebrated the new era that was beginning. Sarilith looked at him with a steady warmth. John of Earth, you changed the fate of my world, and perhaps the fate of many beyond it. Will you stay and stand beside me as we step into this future? John looked at the alien queen who had once ordered him to be brought before her, a queen who now asked him to stay not as a prisoner, not as a warrior, but as an ally, a friend, and something deeper than either of them expected. He smiled. I'm not going anywhere. The stars above them shone brighter, as if marking the beginning of a story the galaxy would never forget. A story of a queen, a mortal, and the world they saved together. A story whispered across systems as the best HFY tale of their age. And so the future opened before them not with fear, but with hope.